Welcome all to Mushonomics. We are having complete economy syllabus series, and this is our second lecture. Here we will be discussing some concepts of microeconomics, and we will be dealing with the first concept of, that is, central problems of an economy. So let's start with this. Okay, so we will be dealing with concept of central problems of an economy. Okay, concept of central problems of an economy. Why they are called as central problems? Because they exist in almost all economy. They exist in almost all economy. So these problems exist in every economy. Hence they are also called as central economic problems. Central economic problems, or they are called as central problems of an economy. Okay. Okay, so what are these problems? Let's see. Number one, the first such problem is what to produce. What to produce. The first problem that every economy faces is what to produce. For example, which combination of commodities to be produced? Which combination of commodities to be produced? Example, wartime goods or peacetime goods. Wartime goods, example, guns, artilleries, etc. Or peacetime goods, for example, food, clothes, etc. So what to produce, or for example, or maybe machines. So what combination of goods to be produced, right? Because resources, why these problems are occurring? Because resources are limited. Yesterday we saw, that's why I'm not repeating that point, that human wants are unlimited and the resources to satisfy those wants are very much limited. That's why these kind of problems occur in every economy, which are also called as central problems of an economy. So number one is what to produce. See, we want to produce everything that is possible, but the resources to produce is limited. The kind of investment, the kind of raw materials, everything is limited, right? In comparison to our demand or in comparison to our wish, right? So our wants, our demands are unlimited, but the resources to satisfy those wants are limited. That's why the first problem occurs is what to produce. For example, whether to produce food or whether to produce clothes or whether to produce machines. See, machines are also called as capital goods. Why they are called as capital goods? Capital goods are those goods which are used to produce, or which are used to produce further goods and services. So the goods which are used to produce further goods and services are called as capital goods. For example, the kind of gadgets or the device I am using right now. So I am producing a kind of service. education, right? So I am producing a service through this device, so this device is a capital good now, right? So capital good versus consumer good. Consumer good, that is being consumed for ultimate satisfaction by the consumer, by the user of the good, right? So for example, I am purchasing a car and I am using that particular car for my personal use. So car, when it is used for personal use, then this is consumer good. Car is a consumer good when we are using it for personal use. But this car, when you are using as when we are using this as taxi services, right? So we are earning something, we are producing transport services through it, right? So this will become capital good. So the goods which are used for further production of goods and services are known as capital goods. The goods which are consumed by the consumer for ultimate satisfaction, that is known as consumer good, right? So what to produce are having these issues, right? Means the first problem, what to produce. So, and what to produce also includes, what to produce also includes how much quantity or amount how much amount or quantity of commodities. For example, 10 machine guns, 15 clothes, etc., right? So the combination in what amount, this is a kind of example for it, right? So in Indian economic context, you can see how we are allocating the resources. Defense budget, budget for agriculture, budget for education, right? So allocation, this is number one, what to produce. Now we come to second question, that is how to produce. That is how to produce. This is the second problem of every economy, how to produce. Let's see what it talks about. See, the first and foremost thing about how to produce is which technology to choose. Which technology to choose. Now, see whether we should go for labor intensive technology, or we should go for capital intensive technology. Labor intensive technology or capital intensive technology, right? So if we talk about labor intensive technology, what is labor intensive technology? That is more use of labor as compared to capital. More use of labor as compared to capital. What is labor? That means, what is labor? Labor is nothing but human element involved in any production. Human element which is involved in any production. Human element involved in any production. For example, I am producing this service, right? I am teaching right now, so I am a labor. So it is skilled as well as unskilled. Skilled labor as well as unskilled, both. Skilled as well as unskilled. When we talk about capital intensive technology means more use of capital, more use of capital than that of labor. More use of capital than that of a labor, right? So what is capital then? Capital is nothing but funds or fund used to buy machines, and here by machine I mean capital good. We have just discussed what is capital good, right? Which is used for further production of goods and services, right? So this is labor intensive and capital intensive. So which technology to use is also a problem. How to produce? For example, if you are a poor economy and you are having abundance of labor, like India, right? So if you are a poor economy, not a developed economy, and you have abundance of labor with you, then it is better to go for labor intensive. But also there will be a question about what kind of goods and services you are producing. So if you are producing lower end commodities, then you can go for, if you are producing lower end commodities, then you can go for labor intensive, where not much skilled workers are required, so you can go for labor intensive. For example, Indian agriculture, it is a kind of labor intensive, right? Not much capital intensive, right? So this is it. This is about how to produce. How to produce involves one more question, that is which raw material to use, right? So also it also involves one more question, that is which raw materials to be used, right? So whether the things, for example, the milk packets should come in plastic packets or in glass bottle, in a glass bottle, right? So these kind of things, which raw materials to be used. So this was our second question, that is how to produce. Now we will move to our third question, that is for whom to produce. For whom to produce. Distribution part, for whom to produce, right? Okay, so here we talk about how to distribute, how to distribute the commodities, how to distribute the commodities which have been produced. Now what to produce, how to produce is done. Now the production has been completed. Now how to distribute it? So how to distribute the commodities which have been produced, right? How it will reach to the people in the economy. Example, production for poor, production for poor or rich, or maybe production for rural or urban. These kind of questions will be dealt under this heading, for whom to produce. For example, I will give you the idea. So these are about this, for whom to produce. We will discuss in little detail. But now these are the three questions that we have to discuss. Concept of central problems of an economy. So number one, what to produce, right? Number two is how to produce, and number three, for whom to produce. In what to produce, we talk about what kind of commodities, right? So which combination of commodities to be produced. Here we talk about labor, which kind of technology, labor intensive technology or capital intensive technology. For whom to produce, we talk about a distribution of the commodities or goods and services which have been produced in the economy. So what we look for when we are trying to solve this question, for example, our first question is what to produce. So when we are discussing what to produce, we will be looking for maximum aggregate satisfaction. Maximum aggregate satisfaction. What do we mean by this? That means people in the economy should get, people in the economy should get maximum satisfaction. People in the economy should get maximum satisfaction. For example, consumer goods. So if this is a kind of winter season, then we should allocate more resources towards winter clothes, not summer clothes, like that, right? So people should get maximum satisfaction out of the goods which have been produced or which you want to produce. Second, how to produce. So for how to produce, you have to keep in mind that you have to maximize your production. So maximum production with least expenditure, this should be the criteria to decide on how to produce. And the third one, for whom to produce, how we decide on this means how the economy, it is a kind of policy part. So how the economy should be dividing its produced outputs, right? So how we can go for this? So there are two types. For example, if we are talking about personal level, how to distribute at individual or personal level, how to distribute at individual or personal level, then it is known as personal distribution. For example, you might have heard about direct benefit transfer to women in the family. Direct benefit transfer to women in the family, right? For example, in Maharashtra, Ladki Behan scheme. For example, in Bihar, Mai Behan Yojana, right? So these kind of schemes, direct benefit transfer to women in the family. For example, midday meal. So through midday meal scheme, what you are doing, you are putting meal in the child's plate, right? Directly to the child. You are not transferring money in the bank account of parents. You are putting meal in the plate of child directly. So these are kind of example of personal distribution, right? These are the example of personal distribution. But when we talk about functional distribution, that is how to distribute on the basis of nature of work. When we talk about this, it is known as functional distribution. That is, what do we understand by this? That is how much should be given to workers, landlords, entrepreneurs, capitalists who are earning on interest, entrepreneurs, profit earners, capitalist, interest earners, right? Workers and landlord, So this will be functional distribution. That is, who will get the larger share of total output created. For example, I will give you one example of USA to understand it better. take the example of US economy. In 1992, US economy was somewhere around $12 trillion. US economy we are talking about. So in 1992 it was somewhere around $12 trillion. In 2024, if we talk about, it is somewhere around $23 trillion, right? So the huge increase in the economy, right? But here if we see the income of profit earners have increased tremendously, but income of wage earners has remained stagnant. That's why you will see protest, etc., for this kind of inequality. Always you will see some kind of protest is going on, because the income of profit earners have increased a lot, but for wage earners it has remained stagnant, right? So this is an example of functional distribution. Now, since we have discussed all these three questions and the major attribute of it, so how we solve these problems? Now we come to solution part, that how we can solve this problem, how to decide on central problems of economy, or how to decide on central problems, right? We are discussing about central problems of economy only. So how to decide on this? So for this I will tell you, first we should go for understanding the classification of economy that we have done. For example, how to decide on central problems? We have economies which we majorly classify as, first we will talk about capitalist economy, then we will take example of socialist economy, then we will take example of mixed economy, right? How to solve the problems of central problems of economy, right? So number one is capitalist economy, socialist and mixed economy. First we will discuss what are the attributes of capitalist economy. The first thing is, in capitalist economy, private property is allowed. You can own your property. Private property is allowed. In socialist economy, all properties are owned by government only. All properties are owned by government. That is concept of public property. In mixed economy, there is existence of both private property as well as public sector. You see, public sectors, right? If we talk about one more attribute, that is inheritance. Inheritance is allowed in capitalist economy, but here inheritance is not allowed. No, in socialist economy, no inheritance, right? No inheritance. And when we talk about mixed economy, there is a concept of limited inheritance, right? Okay, so how we will solve this problem? So in mixed economy, first we will take capitalist economy. In capitalist economy, there is a concept of price mechanism. That is, which works on demand and supply. So forces of demand and supply. Forces of demand and supply. What do we mean by forces of demand and supply? How these forces of demand and supply will solve the problem? Example, if there is a demand of consumer goods, then consumer goods will be produced. If there is a demand of capital goods, then capital good will be produced, right? So this will work in capitalist economy. Central problems of economy will be solved through price mechanism, and forces of demand and supply. These are the things which will solve problems of central problems of economy in capitalist economy, right? Forces of demand and supply. Forces of demand and supply. And here, if we talk about socialist economy, in socialist economy, how we can solve the problem of central problems of economy, that is, here the planning mechanism is used. Planning mechanism is used. And how this planning mechanism works is, there is always a kind of central planning authority. Central planning authority. Central planning authority will collect data, will work on ground, will collect data what people needs, and according to that they will allocate resources. Central planning authority will allocate resources for what kind of good will be produced, what kind of commodities will be produced, and how you will produce these commodities, and how these commodities will be distributed among people. So this work will be done by central planning authority backed by the government, and the central planning authority will solve all the problems of economy, right? Now if we talk about mixed economy, there will be both the things, price mechanism as well as a planning mechanism, right? So it will be divided. Some goods will go for price mechanism, some goods will be going for planning mechanism. We will be having a detailed discussion on mixed economy when we will be discussing India at the eve of independence. So under that particular heading, that particular chapter, we will be discussing the mixed economy, capitalist economy, socialist economy in detail, because we will be studying how India, earlier it was a kind of socialist tilt, and later after 1991 it became mixed economy with little capitalist tilt, right? So these things we will be discussing in upcoming chapter. But this is all for today's class. What we have discussed today is central problems of economy. Quickly I will revise this concept of central problems of economy. These problems are there in every economy, that's why it is also known as central problems. Number one, what to produce. In what to produce, what kind of commodities we should produce, and why these problems are occurring, because wants are unlimited and resources to satisfy those wants are limited. Second question is how to produce, whether to go for labor intensive or capital intensive. Third question was for whom to produce, the kind of distribution of the commodities, right? Then we talked about how to decide on these problems. So capitalist economy is having forces of demand and supply and price mechanism. Socialist economy is having a planning authority, central planning authority, and mixed economy is having a combination of both, right? So I hope you like this. This class will help you in your preparation, and you can join this Telegram group Mushonomics to avail the PDF of these classes. Thank you very much. See you in the next class. Take care. Bye.